Well, joining me is oceanographer Dr. David Gallo, a close personal friend of one of the men on board, Paul-Henri Nargeolet, my friend Hagen, who's taken the trip to visit the Titanic wreckage twice, including with Paul-Henri, and sub-owner Stockton Rush, and by submersible expert William Kohnen, who says he warned Stockton Rush that the Titan sub could be catastrophically unsuitable. Well, welcome to all of you. Let me start with you, Dr. Gallo, if I may. We've talked before when I was at CNN about different kinds of situations like this, but it seems a particular crisis where you have this tiny submersible that's gone down to this historic site of the Titanic, and we don't know what's happened. Today, there was this glimmer of hope about whether a sound that was resonating every 30 minutes may be an SOS signal. Let me start with that. What did you make of that? Should we read too much into it? What else could that noise be?
Yeah, thanks, Piers. Well, yesterday was a gloomy day for me because I saw the end coming. The end was near. And I had been paying attention to this notion that there was an explosion heard by a seismic device about the same time the sub was last heard from. But then last night we had this news about this rapping sound, banging sounds. And at first I thought, well, here's another rumor. Let me see who the source is. And it's a really credible source. And it happened multiple times and reported by multiple different platforms, aircrafts. So it's really boosted my morale quite a bit. And I'm hoping and praying that we have a happy ending to this.
And you know this wonderful character, Paul-Henri, who's done, I think, 30 trips down to the Titanic. He's amassed a huge collection of stuff that he's found there, including chandeliers and so on. So it's obviously something he's incredibly experienced at doing. We're seeing a picture of the two of you together now, in fact. Tell me about Paul-Henri, and tell me also someone of his experience on board. Is that exactly who you need when you get a crisis like this, if they are indeed still alive?
Absolutely. Let me clarify something. When you mentioned he amassed this collection, not personally. At the time, he was working for RMS Titanic Inc., and those are now in an artifact exhibit, so he doesn't have them personally. Yeah, he's incredibly wise, battle-hardened, and calm as you can imagine, and pleasant, as much on the deck of a rolling ship in a hurricane as he is sitting in a Parisian cafe. He is the kind of guy that can coolly and calmly think his way through big problems, and just amazing. He was the person that really put everything together for us to find Air France 447, which many thought would never be found. So what's sad is that normally he'd be on this side of the camera with me, commenting on a situation like this, but now he's on the other side of the camera, so it's a bit different for me, very different for him.
Let me bring in Fred Hagen. You've been a passenger on board the Titan twice, in fact, with Paul-Henri. So you know him better than most. You also know this vessel extremely well. What are your thoughts right now? Do you believe there's hope, or are we really at the end game, do you fear?
As long as there is hope, we have to make every effort to rescue them. And I have to tell you, Piers, thank you so much for your eloquent introduction. It articulated exactly what I've been telling people, that this human beings are differentiated from animals by that divine spark that wants us to achieve, wants us to go further and deeper and faster. And that's what distinguishes those gentlemen. And I'm really tired of the negativity, people trying to tear Stockton. Here's a man who's like trying to democratize the depths. He's trying to come up with a new technology. He's pushing the envelope, and he's using the wealth of businessmen to fund what should have been funded by the U.S. government and by governments to research the depths of the ocean, because the depths of the ocean are fundamental to our future. That's where we're going to find the elements to power the green economy. And I've seen the same remarks you're talking about, even on my social media feed, people talking about how could we spend this money to rescue these billionaire businessmen. Well, I'm going to tell you why we do that. We would do it even if they were homeless children sitting in a cave, because the world rises to that challenge. And the poor we will have with us only. Jesus said that, and that you can't go to a better source than that. And I would also say that this is an opportunity for the government to pay tribute to the private enterprise that is driving the technology that will be required to explore inner space, much as private technology is exploring outer space. So kudos to Stockton for taking that risk, for moving forward. And, you know, it's like the Wright brothers. When they took that first flight and they released from the bonds of Earth, they had no backup. They had no safety plan. If they'd have crashed and gotten killed, they still would have been the first to fly. He is the first person who's trying to democratize the depths. And my hat's off to him.
Let me ask you, you've been on Titan, so what are the conditions likely to be like if they're still alive and this sound, this banging sound, is indeed them expressing an SOS call for help? What would those conditions be like inside there right now if they are right down near the Titanic?
Well, it's horrifying for me to think of. Last year when I was down with PH, the titanium nose, it seeps in the icy cold because the water down there is at a freezing level, and it condenses. And there would be sitting on the mats in the back of the submersible, but it's a very small space. So the 5 of them must be laying side by side. And, if PH is sending these messages on a regular basis, he's doing so and he's doing it every 30 minutes to establish that this is a man-made pattern. And he's doing it because it's also giving those 5 people something to occupy their thoughts. And the rest of the time, he would be having all of them sleeping because they would consume the least amount of oxygen. So they're resting, they're sleeping, and then every hour they're getting up and they're knocking on the shell of that submersible. That's what I hope is happening, and that's what PH would do.
And in terms of the amount of oxygen they have, we're told that by about 10 o'clock tomorrow morning UK time, the amount of oxygen runs out. Is that your understanding?
That is my understanding, and it would be heartbreaking to consider that a man as warm and wonderful and dynamic as PH could be lost to the world. I will personally feel impoverished. And I got to tell you, if I could make a personal comment, and I've said this before, I feel convicted because last year, PH, when we got down to the Titanic, he actually sat in that titanium nose. It's freezing cold, it's full of condensation, and he had slippers on, which everyone wore except me. I took these soft-soled Uggs with sheepskin lining. I meant to buy him a pair before he went, and I keep thinking of him down there in this cramped, claustrophobic quarters with his feet frozen. And I just, I can't forgive myself for the simple act of not sending him the boots that I intended to. I know that sounds absolutely ludicrous.
No, it doesn't actually. It sounds very human and very caring, and exactly how I would feel in that situation. And it's the whole thing is a heartbreaking situation. These are people who love what they do and are part of history when they go down and find stuff and bring it back up for the world to see. But there is another side to this.
Piers, if I could interject, just one thing I'd like to say, because you have referenced the people that are talking about how outrageous it is for us to spend this time and money. I want to remind those people that 93% of the taxes paid in this country are paid by businesses through tax and remittances. And we are now returning that favor by seeking them out. And we would do that even if they were impoverished. But we do that because in the Western world, we put no price on human life.
No, I totally agree. Listen, I find that politics of envy stuff just ridiculous in a situation like this. But let me bring in William, because William Kohnen, you actually in 2018, you were one of 40 submersible experts. You wrote a letter to the OceanGate CEO, Stockton Rush, warning that the experimental Titan sub did not meet industry standards. And I understand that you stand by every word of that letter today. Obviously, you don't want to be vindicated as such, but is this what you feared may one day happen?
Yeah, Piers, it is a difficult situation we have over here. It's right now what's going out in the field. The ocean has the ability to humble us puny humans out here. It is very unforgiving, and from the perspective of the industry that makes these vehicles, we are humbled by the complexity of what it takes to go down there. What we have learned over 50 years is humanity has learned how to safely explore the bottom. There are submarines that go down 6,000 meters and more every week. I mean, we have been doing that for decades. We have found out how to do this safely. It takes time, it is expensive, going deep is difficult, and so as an industry, we have a North Star that we follow. You might say, look, it's parametric, you're just following old routines, but it is working. It has allowed us to operate for 50 years without a single event. And that is to follow a framework of certification that we have built up. It's an international framework. We know it works. And that has stood us by. This is possible and this is safe.
And my understanding, if I may just jump in there, William, my understanding is that the Titan sub was only certified to reach depths of up to 1,300 meters underwater. But of course, the Titanic is nearly 4,000 meters, which is considerably further. So do you believe, if you're being honest, that it was irresponsible to try and go this far down with the Titan?
It is not possible to say what the actual parameters are, Piers, and that's part of the issue of not going through certification. And I just want to add to that. The process of certification sounds like red tape, but what it really is teamwork, and it involves international organizations that have rules and regulations and inspectors and engineers that scrub the design, that verify how it's built, that witness the testing. And what that does is it does give a whole team of seasoned engineers and professionals that add to ensure nothing is missed, that everything is in order. Because when you're out there under these conditions, Father Neptune here does not give a lot of second chances.
But your concerns in that letter in 2018, they were that the Titan did not meet the requirements to do this kind of voyage, right?
So the origin, I wrote the letter, I talked to Stockton about it, and it did came about because we do organize the only conference on submersibles. We invite experts from around the world once a year. And in 2018, at the end of the conference, a number of people said, you know, this is very, very risky. 4,000 meters for 5 people doing it experimental without following our accepted rules of design and safety is so risky. What should we do? Remaining silent didn't seem an option. We are all a bunch of nerds and engineers in some way. We have a very strong feeling and passion for, as engineers in general, a duty of care. And there are certain things that we must take care of because it is not reasonable for normal citizens to be aware.
And let me ask you, William, sorry to jump in again, we're running out of time, but William, just do you believe that there is any hope that they will survive this?
Yes, there is. I agree. We have to make all the efforts as long as we are. It is an issue, the fact that we have completely lost communication early on and we don't know where it is. And right now, searching a small submersible like that in a wide field is so difficult. But if we can find them, we can hook up to them and bring them to surface.
Let's leave it there on that positive note and hope that that is positivity which is met and borne out by events in the next few hours. We'll know, sadly, by tomorrow morning, the oxygen runs out. So there's a horrible ticking clock on this, and we can only hope and pray that they do come forward and there is a miracle. Thank you both, all three of you, very much indeed for joining me. I appreciate it.